Why do so many smart people lose the room the moment they start talking? See, on today's show, we explore why expertise without structure can leave audiences confused and how a simple framework can turn complex ideas into talks that actually move people. And we've got a former magician who now helps experts design keynotes that create real human connection, not just impressive information. Are you ready? Let's go. Today's guest, Brian Miller, spent 10 years as a full-time professional magician. He gave a viral TEDx talk on human connection with 3.6 million views. And now, an award-winning speechwriter and message design consultant for experts, he's here to help us. I'm going to let him take it from here because he'll do a better job of telling you his journey than I will. So welcome to the show, Brian, and tell us how we got here.
How did we get here? Rob, thanks so much for having me. I still vividly remember sixth grade. I'm sitting in the second to last row of English class, and it's book report day. And I am prepared. I'm prepared because I have no friends, so I may as well be a great student, right? And I've got my color-coded binder, book report ready to go. Teacher calls my name. I stand up, start to walk to the front of the room, and I wake up in the nurse's office. Apparently, I blacked out, hit the floor, and that is how we discovered that I had a debilitating speech and social anxiety. So as you can imagine, the next few years in middle school was not terribly enjoyable. A whole room of people just watched you pass out. You're probably going to get bullied, and I did. It was like a Disney Channel original movie from the early 90s. I had the books knocked out of my hand, shoved into lockers. And I switched schools going into ninth grade, high school. And this one day I'm sitting at lunch, and I'm at a table, and there's these kids sitting at the same table as me. I'm not sitting with them. I don't even think they knew I was sitting at this table. I'm just at the same table. And I feel my hand go for a pack of playing cards that's in my pocket. I had been studying magic my entire childhood at this point. My dad loved magic. My grandfather loved magic. And I loved doing magic tricks. The problem, Rob, is that I don't know if you've ever tried magic tricks. You cannot do magic for yourself. It is the only art form that requires an audience. You play guitar, you can jam out, nobody listens to it, you enjoy it, you can write poetry, you can do whatever for your own enjoyment. Magic requires an audience. And in this moment, I go for these cards and I turn and it's like an out-of-body experience. I feel myself start asking these kids next to me, do you want to see a magic trick? And they literally jumped. I literally think that they did not know I was sitting at this table. And I think out of sheer awkwardness, they're like, sure, strange kid we didn't know was here. And so my hands are shaking, and I've got this trick that I'm just so excited about that something has come over me, and I want to share it with somebody. I manage my way through the trick, God knows how, show them the card at the end, two of diamonds, is this your card? They flip out, start knocking over chairs and screaming and calling people over. Hey, you got to see this. You got this kid. Show them what you just showed us. And like that, magic saved my life. I became a confident person through relying on magic tricks to do the exciting thing for me, right? So as long as I was able to be a magic monkey on command, and I was always willing to be a magic monkey on command in those days, I got invited to parties, I was cool, people wanted to hang out with me. And over the years of becoming a magician, I became the confident, hopefully charismatic person that I had always wished I could have been. And so that is how this all began.
Wow. See, mine was very simple. I got put up on a table when I was 4, and I sang a few rounds of The Bear Went Over the Mountain, and I was hooked. My story's a little quicker. But you know, Brian, I actually did see a play a couple weeks ago about it's a one-man show about a magician, and this is a magician who he was his father was in the military, so they moved every year or 2 years, and he had a lot of trouble making friends. And it was
Mm,
magic that helped him. So, sort of a similar
yeah.
story of he felt a little bit outcast, but the moment he pulled, metaphorically speaking, the two of diamonds, he began to
Yeah.
draw a crowd, and so it's kind of a sweet story that I'm guessing is not that unusual for magicians.
It's not. We magicians will often refer to the magic community as kind of like revenge of the bullied or something like that. There's something very it's a very strange community, which is this group of outcasts completely dedicated to deception, and because of that, you're not allowed to talk about it to anyone but magicians. So we're bonded by this secret, right? We're not allowed to talk about it unless you're a magician. So we talk about it with our amongst ourselves. And so many magicians come from that place of powerless, bullied, outcast. Not unlike theater or some other places, but that element of we're bonded over. You could say we're bonded over deception, but the positive version of that is what we're bonded over is the ability to create an experience of wonder for people. I had a mentor that used to describe magic as the only art form that produces wonder on command. Like you can experience wonder in theater, but they can't predict the moment it's going to happen reliably. Everyone kind of feels it in their own way. Like I've seen, The Who live, and I have felt moments of true wonder, but the band doesn't know which moment for each people it's going to hit. Magicians can tell you exactly the moment that every single person is going to feel the experience of wonder and how it's going to happen. And so this is a very special art form. And yeah, that's where I got my start.
Wow. And I don't think it's ever going to leave you either. I think once the
No, once
magician,
a magician, always a magician.
there you go. All right. Well, let's talk about the people you were performing in front of a little bit. I want to start with something I read about you. You talk about a crisis of expertise, and that
Yeah.
really caught me because I've always been in the camp and had to run out of the room, figuratively speaking, when I mentioned I don't know how to break it to you all, but I think knowledge is a bit overrated. Okay. Uh, which really breaks the heart of many salespeople, particularly the analytical
Yeah.
ones who are so knowledgeable, but they can't sell themselves out of a box. All right, from your
Yeah.
perspective, what's really breaking down when we put smart people on stage?
Yeah. What's breaking down when we put smart people on stage? Smart people have the curse of knowledge. The smarter you are, the more you know about your topic, the harder it is to remember what it's like, let alone imagine what it's like to not know what you know. Things that you know seem incredibly obvious to you, but they're not only not obvious to other people, there's so many levels above most people's understanding of this topic that when you start talking, people just immediately tune out, right? And often experts are aware that they're doing this. Oh, experts know that they're doing it, and that actually turns into a lack of confidence. There's a lot of insecurity that comes out when experts speak often because they know that this is not making sense. They just don't know how to fix it. But there's a different problem, which are incredibly confident presenters who are also not making sense, which is in many cases the worst one. Because if you are delivering a message with confidence, as if everyone should understand what you're talking about, and people are sitting there and they do not understand, the people listening, the audience starts to think it's their fault, their problem. Oh, I must be too stupid to understand this because he's so confident. He's not even bothering to explain it. Maybe this simple thing is just above my head and I don't have enough education. And what happens is when people feel like that, they don't ask. They don't raise their hand and say, I don't get it, because they think maybe I'm the only one that doesn't get it. And when this happens in a room, it's a problem, but it has happened at scale across society, across humanity. And I think a lot of people are tired of feeling stupid when experts talk. And so feeling stupid, not understanding over time has led to a lack of trust in proper credentialed experts. Meanwhile, there are, quote, influencers, incredibly charismatic presenters who have figured out how to package up the information from your field. They're not an expert in it. They figured out how to package it in a way that immediately earns trust, earns engagement, earns buy in. And Rob, the reason this is a problem is those people are not experts, which means they're either getting it wrong or they're missing the nuance, or they're confidently saying things that either aren't true for some people, could get them into trouble. There are people who are not experts in what you do, who are explaining your field to the public and earning trust while you're losing it. And this is a huge problem.
Yeah. Actually, I think that's one of the reasons why guys like you will take a talk and bring in 3, 4 million people, whatever it is. And because I've been pushed into this corner, they go, but he's saying the same thing as the other guy said. And without even hearing it, I usually say, yeah, but he said it simpler. He said it
Yeah.
easier. He said it so people could understand it. A lot of our
Yes.
books, things I write, it's not that I've reinvented the art of selling, but what if we could learn how to teach something that's complex in a very simple manner?
This is whenever I'm asked to what do you attribute the success of your TEDx talk, it went viral. It was a real outlier. First of all, I didn't make it go viral. People ask, how do you make it go viral? I didn't. If I knew how to make a TED talk go viral, every video I ever made would go viral. Please,
Right.
right? Algorithm, luck, zeitgeist, culture, a lot of things going on. However, what I attribute a lot of the success of the talk and my speaking career in human connection, where I live these two lives. One, I speak on human connection to healthcare systems and corporations about culture, and the other one, I teach experts how to give talks that earn buy-in the way that I do it on human connection. Here's the interesting thing: nobody should be hiring me to talk about human connection. I don't have a PhD. I don't even have a master's degree. I have an undergraduate degree in philosophy, and I was a magician for 10 years. Like, those are my credentials. So why is an $80 billion a year, in global insurance company bringing me in to talk about insurance? I don't know anything about insurance. Why are they bringing me in? Why is, a massive healthcare facility, organization with 100,000 employees bringing me in to talk about corporate culture? Rob, I've never had a job. Why am I being asked to talk about corporate culture? I've literally never had a job. The answer is I have figured out how to talk about human connection in a way that people actually engage with. And it's not that I'm saying anything new. It's like what you said. When I talk about listen to understand, not to respond or to reply, do you know how many people and how long that advice has been given? It's not that they're hearing it for the first time when I say it. It's that they're getting it for the first time. They're actually understanding what it means. And because I'm explaining it in a way that's relevant to them and giving them useful, actionable things they can do right now and not bogging them down in jargon or research or studies or all the highfalutin stuff that experts talk about, they can use it. And if they use what you talk about, they will continue talking about you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We should compare notes on the clients that we've had. I'm a magician myself sometimes because I've trained. At one point, I was working with 650 polygraph examiners. I don't even know how the machine works, but my job
That
wasn't to,
exactly.
right. I wasn't there to teach them how to give a lie detector test. I was there to teach them how to create trust on the front end, urgency in the middle, and bring it to a resolution on the end, and to be able to do that in a simple manner and then leave them to their expertise. That's the dance that we do.
Yes, 100%. I love that you said trust on the front end. I mean, that is literally where my speech design system starts, and it comes right from the world of magic.
Yeah.
It is earning trust as quickly as possible. And the way to do that is to answer the question everybody's thinking when you walk up on stage. And this is your listeners, if they're thinking about giving a keynote speech or formal presentation, if they're in a boardroom giving a pitch, if they're just giving a talk in their community to inspire some local change, any type of what I would consider formal or professional communication, the first question the audience is asking when you start talking is, should I pay attention to this? That's it. It's the relevance question.
Right.
Is this worth my time? You see it at an event. You see it all the time. When you walk up on stage, everyone's got their phones out and they're deciding in the first 30 to 60 seconds, do I have to put my phone away or can I keep doing email? Right? That's it. Should I pay attention to this? And almost every communicator doesn't answer this question.
Right.
They just start talking about their thing, their topic, as if the audience cares.
Right. Right.
You have to meet them where they're at if you want to earn trust initially.
Yeah. I think well, you're onto something here. I think not only do we ignore that, we tend to bury it with what I call our story. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is, please welcome Brian Miller, and up you come. It's like, I started in a laboratory, and here comes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
here's part of the lie, Brian, is that story's really interesting to us.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
right,
just
right.
not as interesting as we think it is to the audience, but we've told it plenty of times. In sales, we abbreviate what you've just described as a WIFM. And that
Mm,
WIFM is what's in it for me. Okay.
that's right.
It's WIFM. And I wrote a piece one time and I put a little short behind it. It got more hits on it than anything I've ever done. And the title was simply The One Question an Audience Will Never Ask You, but Needs to Know. Because they don't
Mm,
put up their hand and say,
that's right.
just curious, what's in it for me to learn this? Or, what's the big picture here? Uh,
Yeah,
and yet
yeah.
it's laying on their mind. And one more thing, but if they already are excited to be there, we're not going to lose them because we
That's right.
reinforce it.
That's right. And you know what? People, even people who are excited, I just said this to a client the other day, people who are excited to be there, even people who bought a ticket specifically to come to an event, they don't remember why. The second you walk up on stage, they can't remember why they're supposed to be listening to this or why they signed up for it or what they were thinking when they did, even when they specifically came to hear this. Even if you're just doing a webinar that people explicitly signed up to come learn something from you, you would think they all know what they're there to learn and why it's relevant to them. They do not. The world, there's too many things going on in people's brains and their lives. The first words out of your mouth have to answer the question, should I pay attention to this? And we teach our clients to answer that with what we call a premise.
Yeah.
The premise,
Right.
where is the audience? Where are they thinking? What are they hoping to achieve? What do they want? What are they struggling with? Where are they? That has nothing to do with you or your topic, right? You can't, I always use the example of, it's when an environmental, like an environmental conservationist or a marine biologist or somebody gets up on stage and they're like, we have to save the whales. And the audience is like, I don't want harm to befall whales, but like, I don't care. Like, that's not where I am in my head, right? When you walked up on stage, you
Right.
got to start with something I'm already thinking that I already hold true.
Right. And the sad thing is you just gave us a better case scenario. There's even a worse case scenario than that, which is frequently in corporate presentations, half the audience has no idea why they're there. They never signed up for it. The
It's
boss
true.
signed them up for it. The district manager signed them up for it. You will go, and off they go into
Yeah.
this workshop, whatever. So I like the ones that forgot why they were there. Yeah.
Yes, and you know what? You know what that is? I've spent a huge amount of time in the college market. I don't do as much of it anymore, but I still every August, September I do what I call the back to school tour where I speak to incoming freshmen. Now, this is a mandatory event. Not only do they not know why they're there, they don't want to be there. They would rather be getting into trouble, not with their parents for the first time. There's anywhere they would rather be than a speaker on day one of college. But they're forced to be there for an hour. And so, say I'm there to talk about human connection. The organizers, the student activities board, the president of the university, they want me to talk about human connection. But if the first words out of my mouth are today we're going to talk about human connection, or I'm going to tell you why human connection matters, or it's really important that we connect with people, I will lose almost every student immediately because none of them are sitting there at the end of 3 days of orientation where I'm the last thing between them and starting their college career and thinking, if only I could listen to an hour about how to make meaningful connections. Like just nobody's thinking that. And so I start my human connection presentation for students with, we all want great opportunities. And you watch every student go, I'm listening, right? I'm like, you want opportunities for your career. You want opportunities to find a great relationship. You want opportunities to have whatever it is, right? I talk about opportunities first because that's what they want. That's why they're in college. They're hoping it will lead to opportunities for them. And once I've got them on board, my case becomes the way to get great opportunities is talking to meeting, connecting with people. My line for students is opportunities don't look like opportunities. Opportunities look like people.
Yeah.
And I'm here to convince you today to talk to more people and how to make meaningful connections with them. But that comes 5-6 minutes into the talk where I've established what they actually want first.
Right.
That's the way you reach students.
I love that. I love that. When I'm on my game, sometimes I play a little bit of game. Nobody knows. It's just in my own head. But I love to dance around a topic without even giving them the name of the presentation or the topic yet.
Totally.
But, walking down the street, such and such, I launch into a story. And what if there was a way to, and I launch into a couple of questions, and how would that benefit us here? Well, I still haven't said, here's what we're going to talk about, connections. I haven't brought up the word connections, but I
That's
brought
right.
up what's in it for them to want to hear about where we're going, and then bam, hit them with that
Yes.
topic.
Yes. And what you're doing here is really interesting. So I talk about this all the time, which is typically speech design advice. First of all, you almost never get advice about speech design. You get speaker coaching advice. So almost all advice is actually about how to hold your hands, how to. I've got a billion books that have been written presumably about speaking. None of them give more than a single chapter to what to write in the speech. It's mind blowing. It's just nuts to me that there's only a single chapter on the actual words you're going to say while you're on stage. But there's like 3 classic ways that we are told to start a speech, right? There's more than this, but the 3 that people hear about, they hear if you're going to start a speech, you can open with a question, you can open with a surprising statistic, or you can open with a story. And what I love about what you just did is that you explained why you open with a story. And you use a story to establish the premise of the talk. Where you could explicitly say the premise, you use a story to establish it. And here's the thing, a surprising statistic, a story, a question, all of these things can work as the opening to a talk. The problem is they are merely tactics and people do not know which one to grab. And my answer is you grab the tactic that helps you establish the premise. Know what your premise is first, then choose a tactic that helps you get there. Many of us choose a story. A story is a beautiful way to open a talk, but only if it establishes the premise of the talk. The problem with opening with a story is you see a lot of speakers open with a story, and the audience has no idea why they're listening to it. They can't tell where it's going. There's nothing in it that makes them think about themselves. And so they're like, if you're really entertaining, it might be fun to listen to for a few minutes, but even someone who's really entertaining, really charismatic, after 2 or 3 minutes, if I can't tell why I'm listening to this story, I'm back to my email. I'm out.
Yeah.
And so I love that you said you open with a story, but but you said for the purpose of helping the audience grasp what this is about. And then you can explicitly say it later. But you do have to answer the should I pay attention to you question.
Yeah. I do want to go back on something. You are talking to the presentation whisperer, sir. You may not know this, but and I almost never talk about my books, but you have a book coming out. It's not out quite yet. You know what? I'm going to feel guilty. Tell me about the book that's coming out. When we close, I'm going to hear about it again so I can crowbar a quick book in here. All right. What's the book that's
Cool.
coming out?
My book is called The One-Page Keynote, How to Design a Talk That Always Works, No Charisma Required.
All right. And when's it coming out?
Mid to late May.
Okay. You hear that, everyone? Mid to late May. Jump on it. Reviews. You know the rules. Okay. In 1993, I wrote my first book. And I've never had a book that sold like the first one. And Wiley grabbed it. But to your point, I was still at Xerox. I was leaving Xerox, and Xerox had created a structure, a legitimate, real live, repeatable, predictable process that would fit any presentation. And it was called a U-popper. Okay. Stands for utility, product, process, objective, proof of ability, process justification, review. So I want to get around. You've got 8 questions. I'm going to tell you the questions that this one answers. Utility, what's in it for me? Product, what's the big picture that you're going to talk about in one sentence? Process, what are you going to talk about? How are you going to talk about it? Not on time here, but we're going to do this. I'm going to case study. I got a video. You're going to do it. Because audiences, they get uncomfortable, particularly adults. Objective, probably the second biggest question. what do you expect out of me, when this
Mm,
is over? No pop quizzing in the corporate culture, right? We tell them exactly what's coming. Then, who are you? Why this topic? And maybe has this ever worked for anybody else? That's the proof. And because it can take 4 to 6 minutes to be done right, we do a light review sometimes of just a few pieces of it. But I'm telling you, you are talking to a guy that's going to launch you right now because I want to hear those questions. But I totally agree with you. And I believe that's why this book keeps selling because it
yeah.
provides at least a process. All right,
Yes.
I got it off my shoulders. Thank you.
No, that's beautiful. And this is going to give us something really interesting to talk about here because there are places where my structure and what you just described align and there are places where they diverge and I can already tell you why they diverge and it's not because
Good.
either of them is better or worse, it's because they're designed for different purposes. And I'm
Okay.
super clear in the first chapter of the book about what type of speech this book is meant for. This book, my structure, is only meant for thought leadership style presentations. In other words, keynotes. It's called the one-page keynote, but the reason it's called that is because keynotes are a vehicle tailor-made for thought leadership style presentations. I say in the book, I don't endorse this structure for a product pitch. I don't endorse it for a political speech. I don't endorse it. Like there are elements of my structure that work for those, but not necessarily all of them are in this exact order because those are different purposes. So there are places where what you just described make complete sense in the context of what would you call that type of
Workshop.
a work.
I'm more of like a seminar workshop. So you can see that there's
Perfect.
going to be a lot more going on than I'm going to talk to you for 60 minutes. Keep
That's
going.
right. Exactly. And so the 8 questions. So you alluded to these 8 questions. So basically, my structure is built on the thesis that I've seen play out over and over again, which is when you're giving a thought leadership style presentation, a keynote, and you could say a minimum of 15 to 20 minutes on stage in front of an audience who's quietly watching you, right? That's essentially what this is. Could be upwards of 60 minutes. Many people, though, say scientists, academics, they're often asked to talk for 20 to 30 minutes at an event in front of the room, share their research, that kind of a thing. There's potential stakeholders in the audience. There's politicians in the audience. There's people that we need to be on board with this. Please go up and share your research. You have 2 weeks to prepare, and they have 30 minutes, and they're just a scientist who's like, I don't know how, what? I don't know how to do this. And that's where you get death by PowerPoint, right? You just get gauntlet of research and data and stats that bores them and everybody in the room to tears. Have you ever heard a speaker at the beginning of their talk tell the audience it's going to be boring, like pre-apologize for how boring the talk's going to be?
I have, and
It,
I almost lose my lunch when I hear it. I actually have heard
I
it,
know.
and to me, it's like kicking a dog. It hurts my ears and eyes. I'm
It's
so
so
offended by it.
disrespectful. It's
Yep.
so disrespectful. I'm like, well, if you don't even if you're apologizing before you talk, why are you up there taking our time, taking our attention?
Yeah.
Okay, so here are the.
Glad
Do
we
you
got
want?
that
How do
off
you
our
want to? Yeah,
shoulders, by the way.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Listen,
both of us look a little really like, okay, keep going.
it happens a lot when I'm the closing keynote too. Right before me, they'll put up like the CFO to just give you like the quarterly financial whatever, and they go up there and they open up a book on the podium and they go, "All right, we're gonna do. I need everybody to just bear with me. I got to get through this." And then they do that for 20 minutes. They put the audience to sleep. And then they're like, and now our closing keynote, former magician to talk about human connection, Brian Miller. And you're like, God damn, man. I can't believe what I'm walking into. So how do you want to do this, Rob? Do you want to go through, you want me to go through the 8 questions first to give you what that sounds like?
Yeah, let's talk.
Or do you want to go one at a time?
Let's brush through them, and then we'll sort of lean on a couple biggies. Okay. So
Perfect.
let me see what you got.
Perfect. Here they are. You're in the audience. Speaker just takes the stage. You think to yourself, should I pay attention to this? Right? It's what we talked about. After they answer that question, should I pay attention to this? And you give them a good, solid yes, here's why you should pay attention. Then they think, but does this really matter? In other words, they're asking, what's at stake if I don't deal with this? Like, do I actually have to deal with this right now? Because there's a lot of problems people have. They know they have, but they don't feel like dealing with them. They're not a big enough problem. Just because they have a problem doesn't mean they want to deal with it. So, should I pay attention to this? Does this really matter? The next question they ask, if you've convinced them that it matters that they deal with it right now, they go, but why should I listen to you specifically?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because there's so many people who could talk about this. Why wouldn't I just ask ChatGPT or look up Brene Brown? Why would I listen to this random person I've never heard of? Why should I listen to you specifically? After you answer that, they do a question that they ask themselves a question that nobody realizes. This is the linchpin of the whole system. People now ask, but why can't I keep doing what I've already been doing or what I've already heard of? Right? They ask themselves, is there a way that I already know how to solve this? Because the last thing people want to do is something new. They don't want to do something new. They don't want to have to think. They don't want to have to try. So they go, why can't I keep doing what I've already been doing? If you convince them that they can't keep doing what they've already been doing, they're going to ask finally at this moment, well, then what's the solution? Right? Then what is the solution? So you finally get to actually talk about your thing. It's way later in the talk than speakers think. And then if your solution sounds good to them, they ask, well, how do I get started? Right? What do I actually do to start doing this thing? And that's usually, if speakers make it that far, they typically end there. But there's 2 more questions people ask. And if you don't answer them, they won't use your idea. They won't talk about it. They won't implement it. How do I get started? You tell them that, and then they ask a version of a question they already asked earlier. Really early on, they asked, does this really matter? Now they're asking, is it really worth it? You just told them how to start doing this new thing. They know what to do, but they're going, is it really worth it? Because again, it feels hard. It's a new thing. And if you manage to convince them it's worth doing, they ask one final question, and every speaker I ever tell this to, they always laugh because you know exactly what this question is. They go, wait, what was this all about again? Right? That's the last question, and you have to answer it. If you don't, you lose them. So right. Should I pay attention? Does this really matter? Why should I listen to you specifically? Why can't I keep doing what I've already been doing? Well, what's the solution then? How do I get started? Is it really worth it? What was this all about again? Those are the questions.
Love them. I'm going to add a question. I'm going to add one to you. By the way, as you were going through it, I'm thinking, okay, product. I was sort of plugging them in here.
Mm-hmm.
You made a really interesting distinction between guy who's going to do a 1-day workshop or a half-day workshop where there's a lot of logistics that are being laid out as opposed to a 20 or 30-minute talk. You had me at implementation, by the way. I love the question that deals with implementation because I think that's how, Brian, you stay in the business for another 25 years. You're on a wave right now. You're on a roll. It goes up and down. Welcome to the business. But when you've got clients that implement, you've always got business. When you've got clients that just were entertained, you'd be surprised what happens when you double back a year later.
Just real quick on that before you ask the follow-up question you were about to ask. That is literally the premise of this book, which is if you ask event planners, what do you want? What does success look like to you? They all say a version of the same thing. I want to see people using what they learned next week. I want to hear people talking about the ideas in the speech at the coffee break, at the Monday morning, in the Slack channel. In other words, I want to see change.
Right.
And change requires change, which means if people do not do something new as a result of your talk, you have failed as a communicator. That is what this structure is designed to do. Get people to do something new after your talk.
Yeah. And that's why when we started, we're circling back and we could say, you can be the smartest person in the room. You can be an expert. It doesn't mean anyone's going to be able to connect or implement whatever it is you're talking about. But congratulations, you're very smart.
You're very smart. That's where this all came. It gets me really frustrated. I come from the world of academia. My parents, my family, I come from that. And so many academics and researchers and scientists produce what should be genuinely world-changing work. And it just collects dust in the halls of academia because no one outside of them and people just like them understand it. And because people don't understand it, they don't use it. And it doesn't ever change the people the research was designed to change. It doesn't help anybody. And it's
Right.
just so disappointing that an influencer can make a crap video with misinformation and cause massive change through the culture.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
And it becomes, we should write the book, The Flavor of the Month Syndrome.
Yeah.
It tastes good for a month. And then
Yeah.
no wonder we've got people looking at their iPhones in the audience. They're whispering to each other, don't worry. We'll be switching this process out in about 2 months.
Yeah.
Just nod. So I like,
100%.
I don't want to, I hope I don't insult you when I say I like the fact that there's almost a sales element to what these questions are offering.
I'm
Let's
the
sell
opposite
this
of
idea.
insulted.
Okay.
I'm the opposite of insulted. We are selling ideas.
Right.
Like it is sales. People have to buy in to the idea. And just like selling anything else, people only buy it if it's something they actually want and think will be valuable to them.
Right.
You really can't sell people anything unless you like people don't want to be sold to, they want to buy, right? And so the goal of this is not to it's like persuasion is such a weird term because like of course you want to persuade them, but what you're really doing is getting them to persuade themselves. You're helping them understand why they need this idea. Like they came to it themselves. You're just helping them get there.
Yeah. Boy, you nailed it. Brian, my working definition for 3 decades to sales is taking an idea, putting it in somebody else's brain and making them feel like they thought of it. Okay.
Yes, 100%.
That's
That's
persuasion.
100%. And so you're talking about sales when people are, buying a product or a service or something like that. Mostly when I talk about this, I'm talking about it at the level of an idea, but it is the same thing.
Right. Well, as a corporate trainer, it is an idea. I'm with you. So the
That's
one
right.
question that I want to throw at you that I pay attention to, and this might be that workshop seminar part of me, but I feel like you've nailed every one of them. We say them a little bit differently, but we're on target. But one
Yeah.
that proof of ability, uh, it's an obscure one, and even when I teach it, I tell people not every audience needs this. But as we're going through that list of questions, sometimes I have people that really do want to be there. They understand what we're going to do. They know what the big picture is. They know what we expect out of them. They've got it all, but they've tried before and failed. And
Hmm.
so we're not trying to convince them that this is going to help you. We're convincing them that this will actually work. Okay. And
Yes.
so a proof of ability sometimes that I will put into an opening will be a story about another organization that I worked with that had never worked on a process like this or an idea. And they were able to actually see this level of gain or something. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of quietly taking care of an objection. Again, nobody's got their hand up in the air going,
Yeah.
I want to learn it. I just don't think I'm capable of trying
Yeah.
to convince them they're capable still before I've taught them what it is we're going to learn. And that's a
Yeah.
tricky little piece.
Yeah, so there are two places in my system where we get what you're
Okay,
describing into it. One
good.
one is actually in that why you specifically. What there where we have something called the story hook. And the story hook, you're probably as a speaker, you're going to use stories all throughout the talk. Many stories, some long, some short, anecdotes, some about you, some about other people, case studies, lots of different things. But there's one specific story that needs to be in almost every speech, a thought leadership style speech anyway, and that is the story hook, which answers two questions. Do you understand the problem that I have? And are you qualified to solve it? You have to tell a story that answers both of those questions. Do you understand it? Are you qualified to solve it? So one way to initially head off that potential objection of, is this actually going to work at all kind of a thing,
Well,
right? Is that
can
what you're
I do it?
describing?
I think
Can
it's a
I?
brilliant
It's
thing.
worked for other
Am I
people, but
good
would
enough?
it
Am
work
I
for
a
me?
good enough magician? You're doing great. That's a wonderful trick. I want to learn it. I don't know if I'm capable of learning it.
Okay. So there's two places that we do this. So it's not the story hook. So let me back that up. So am I capable of doing it? That question. Okay. We don't even deal with that mostly until the success part of the talk, which is all the way back in that question I had said where they've already asked you what's the solution then, and you tell them, and then they're thinking, how do I get started? And you tell them how to do it, and then they ask, is it really worth it? And what they're asking is, Is it worth the sacrifice? Because what happens is people weigh two things. They weigh stakes and sacrifices. And with due respect to my friends and colleagues in behavior change who will tell you 100 years of complicated research, I always boil down behavior change to something incredibly simple, which is this. If it feels like the potential sacrifice for trying this is worse than what's at stake if I don't solve my problem, I won't do it. If the sacrifice is worse than the stakes, I won't do it. If the stakes feel worse than the sacrifice, I will do it. That's it. It's really just that simple. And so at this moment, that like what you're describing is the potential sacrifice. It's I've tried this before and it doesn't work. Like I've seen it work for other people, but it doesn't work for me. That's the potential or perceived sacrifice of wasted time, energy, money, reputation, self, sense of self, identity. And what we have to do at this point is do what you just said, but we just do it later instead of earlier.
Yeah.
We tell us a story or two that are case studies at this point, essentially, of people just like them or organizations just like them who had this problem and were successful.
Yeah.
We just don't front load it because I always feel if you front load that in a keynote, it feels like a sales pitch. That's actually, it feels like people start feeling like I'm being sold to when you put a case study early on, because case studies always start to sound like, here's an example of why you should buy this thing, right? But what we do is in a keynote, we're bringing them along these questions. And by the time we get to that part where the goal of this is that they're not going to have that question. They're not going to have the like, would this actually work for me question until if they have it, it's going to be much later and we're going to answer it then. So I don't know if that helps.
No, it helps. It helps.
But again, you're doing a workshop where people are maybe you're talking about people are about to invest 3 hours, 6 hours, 2 days, 3 days. That knowing that this is going to be like useful, like that it will work for them.
Right.
Is really important to commit that level of time.
Yeah, it's a process change. It's a cultural shift that a workshop creates that a keynote, and I deliver plenty of them, but a keynote's not going to change the organization. A workshop with 20 people going through role plays, et cetera, can. I'll give you one last example and then I'll wrap you up with one more question. I remember when I was at Xerox and I was sort of struggling with this piece because I was working on this U-Popper and Xerox gave up on it. I got literally, not figuratively, literally found it in a closet. And it was the one piece I wasn't sure of. And I had a woman at that point, you had to give presentations not about Xerox. She gave it about dieting and the struggles. And that opening was just missing. And I said, I don't think there's a lot of people are going to argue that they want to or don't want to. It's that they failed so many times. And is there anything? And she said, yeah, I got it. And she got teary-eyed when she delivered this thing, but it was a magic presentation. And the proof of ability was herself. And so it was a little bit more intimate at that time. You know what I mean? And, everybody's eyes kind of were, but I got to tell you, you had people leaning into this talk.
Yes, that's the story hook, which is where I went the first time you raised this, which is for many people doing thought leadership style talks, they themselves are a proof point because almost everybody who gives thought leadership style talks they themselves once struggled with whatever the problem is. Now, that's not always the case. I work with academics and scientists who have studied this problem, but they have not. There are oncologists who've never had cancer, right? Obviously. So, but many people can resolve this by telling their own story, but telling it at the right moment.
Yeah.
That story, if you open with it, doesn't always work. It's often too heavy for people, which is why we open with the want, the problem, the stakes, the stuff about the audience, and then you answer the why should I listen to you specifically, and you give your story hook, and people realize, oh, someone like that, like, hey, someone who was bullied, socially anxious, passed out trying to give a book report can become a world-class speaker. Maybe I can too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like there's a reason that I tell that story in certain environments.
Yeah.
Because for the kind of people that I'm trying to reach, a lot of them are thinking, I can't be a speaker unless I'm charismatic, unless I'm naturally good at talking, unless I love
let's make
being
that
in
our
front of
last
the room.
question. Let's make that the last question. I love that. You've got people here that don't feel naturally charismatic, but
Mhm.
is that a barrier to entry here?
No, it's literally the subtitle of the book has no charisma required in it. Yeah. The reason, right? The
Yeah.
reason that I say this is, listen, if given the choice, I'm sure you, me, and everyone listening would prefer to watch a speaker who is both incredibly charismatic and has a brilliantly designed, easy to understand speech. I would always pick both if given the choice. But for many people, it is an actual choice. If you are somebody who is not naturally charismatic, if you don't feel like you're the funny guy that people just love being around, if you get super nervous talking to people, I can turn you into a charismatic presenter, but it might take 3 years. If you got to give a talk in 2 weeks, don't worry about charisma. Design beats delivery every time. If you design your talk properly, if you answer the questions the audience is silently asking themselves in the order they're asking them, the talk will work. I promise. All you have to do is get them to understand the idea, engage with it, and then start using it. And you know that this is true because you have watched incredibly boring, monotone presenters deliver incredibly useful talks. I would prefer if they were funny, but I mean, take for example, in a national crisis or in a in a natural disaster, you turn on the news, you're scared, your family's in a disaster zone, you don't know what to do. You turn on the news, and someone very seriously, with no charisma, no jokes, no personality, tells you exactly what you need to hear and exactly the order they answer the questions you have. You will listen all the way through because this talk is what they're saying is useful, it's relevant, you can follow them, and you know what to do as a result. They don't have to be interesting. The talk has to be interesting.
Got it.
So take that and go put it into the world of keynote speaking.
Right. Right. Commit to who you are. I mean, there's nothing more pathetic than somebody trying to be humorous or trying to be, maybe read a book on charisma.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah,
looks
yeah,
like they're
yeah.
following some
Here's
sort of
a
robotic.
joke, yeah,
Yeah.
a book on jokes and all this stuff. And listen, like again, if you're going to be giving speeches all the time in front of large audiences, of course, you should also be investing time in learning, take improv classes, do theater training. Like, yes, of course, if you're going to be constantly delivering talks in front of live audiences, it is worth working on your presentation skills. There's no doubt about that. My point is, most people think that's the barrier. They think I can't be a great communicator unless I have presentation skills, charisma, great delivery, whatever. And the answer is no, that's actually the last 5%. Get the design of the talk right, and it will do its job. And then if you want to make it snappy and, pizzazz it up, great, do that.
It's almost like training an actor. I did some acting in my 20s and I had one couple really good directors, but one of them I remember could care less about the script. Don't even need to look at the script. We need to learn who this character is. We need to
Mm,
understand who you are, what you're
mm,
doing. You learn that character, the words become real easy. We don't have to think about here's where I punch it up or here's where I slow it
that's
down.
right.
I'm in character. Okay.
That's right. I'm so glad you said that. It was a perfect kind of send off for this because and listen, I have a presence and performance coach on my team, and she knows that I wrote this book and she knows the way I talk about this. And listen, my thesis has always been if you know the speech, and I used to say if you know your content, and then people would object. They go, no, I do know my content. What they mean is they know their topic. And I'm like, no, no, no. I know you know your subject matter. I know you know your topic. I'm saying, do you know the speech? That's the content. You're giving a 20-minute talk. Do you know it inside and out? Exactly what you're saying and in what order. So you can't mess it up. If you know exactly what you're saying and you know that if you put it in this order, people will be able to follow it, that confidence is what you just described with the actors. That confidence actually lets people relax. And then most of the time, they make the right hand gestures. They make the right
Exactly.
inflections. They make a snappy joke out of nowhere. People who are not otherwise funny sometimes say something very funny, and it's because they know the talk is going to work with or without them.
Right.
Which, by the way, full circle, That's the beauty of magic. The trick works because of the design of the trick. I can be shaking, I can be not funny, I can be stumbling to get my words out, but if I just do the moves in exactly the right order, the magic trick works and people will react. The trick works by itself. The design of the speech works on its own. It's not the speaker, it's the speech.
Ladies and gentlemen, the great Brian Miller. I do want you to know that we're 55 shows in. You've just set a record for the longest podcast. And you know what? We're scratching the surface. I have like 9 more questions. This has been wonderful. I am so glad we had this opportunity to talk. And really, you got a fan. I've always been a structural guy. That's why I moved us back to 93 and said, I was on it. And not only was I on it, but that book keeps selling to this day. It's
awesome.
Still out there. Not because of the other stuff, because people want to see some structure that they could stylize in some way, as opposed to first you tell them what you're going to tell them, then you tell them, then you tell them what you're going to tell them. You know, I want to punch that guy in the nose, whoever came up with that one. And, you know, and it did work well in 10th grade, Brian. You got to give it credit.
It's literally in this book. I literally refer to that structure and say, so everybody's 6th grade teacher taught them that. And technically it's right. It's just not helpful.
Exactly. It's missing a few pieces. How do people, tell me about the book again. Tell us how we get a hold of you.
Yeah, the one-page keynote, the book's coming out in late May. We're not quite sure the release date yet, but if you go to keynotedesignbook.com, you can just jump on the wait list, tell me about the book when it comes out. So it's keynotedesignbook.com. Do that, and you'll also immediately get access to some kind of training I have. Keynotes versus workshops, actually, kind of part of what we were just talking about, the difference between a keynote and a workshop. I'm really easy to find. I'm on LinkedIn, Brian Miller or Brian Miller Speaks. You'll find me on LinkedIn. That's my platform of choice.
Perfect. Well, I truly, this is one of the reasons why I love this show, because I get to meet guys like you. Really, I wish you nothing but success. Terrific job. I had big expectations for you and you knocked it out of the park. So thanks so much for being on the show, Brian.
Thanks so much for having me.
We'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please follow, rate, and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. For more resources and to connect with Rob, visit thepresentationwhisperer.com.